Hey, what's going on, everybody? Yoshi the Warrior here. So, you remember that video I did on Q just yapping? Well, it turns out one of his Marxist followers, and yes, this person is a Marxist, decided to strike up a little conversation with me in the comments section, and we had a colorful back and forth. And as I was having a conversation with this person, I started to realize under no circumstances am I going to have an adult conversation with someone that says something and sticks with what he actually says. So we're gonna go over the comments with this guy, and let's just say, yeah, he's not the smartest person from Q's Just Yappin's community. Let's just say that. So for context, let's go ahead and start with the original comment that I left on Q's video talking about racism within the anime community. I said, it started with the anti-white rhetoric from the left-wing activists. The anime community was never like this before. Ever since COVID lockdowns is when it went downhill. Also, I forgot to mention, the race swapping also started with left-wing activists, and they are just as racist as these types. I remember blackwashers making a character black and unironically the character was a sex slave. Two sides of the same coin. With more broader context, it's in regards of like fan art when it comes to anime. Typically, a person in this illustration will create some type of fan art of a original creation licensed by an IP of the Japanese. And they'll make a fan art that's slightly lighter than the original, which is fine because, it's fan art. It's your private property. You can do what you want with that. You can make certain changes to it so long as you're not showing any type of political alignment about it. And this person says, why did you lighten her skin color? The eyedropper tool exists. Meaning, the character's skin color cannot be any lighter because to this person, this is considered quote unquote whitewashing. Except in other examples where this is actual activists taking Japanese art and they're showing their vanity as opposed to their appreciation to artwork like this one, where they're just taking the exact frame, the exact keyframe, and they're just making the character black and coding them black to make political statements saying it shouldn't be the Japanese person in the studio making anime. It should be me, the white person or the black person who's a Marxist in the Japanese studio making anime art. Which is honestly why I hate these types of quote unquote fan art work, because it's not a sign of appreciation, it's a vanity project. They think they belong in high institutions or high paying jobs simply because they copied someone, but the skin color of the person that they copied is black. Therefore, it's better than the original. Therefore, you should fire the original guy and hire me because I used black skin as a tool, a cudgel, to get a high-paying job. And what is the reward of those who get behind this type of quote-unquote fan work? Representation. They get the money, you get seen. Ooh, don't you feel special? Now, this is where Mr. Bullboy Adventurers comes in with his original comment, and keep this in mind. Remember his claim. Your comments mean nothing. I see the kinds of people you're subscribed to. Meaning, because I am subscribed to a certain group of people, therefore the words that I say cannot be trusted. Therefore, I must be alienated, and therefore the only trustworthy source is him and everyone within that comment section that thinks like him, talks like him, acts like him, and sounds like him. Which is the literal definition of a cult. Also, here's a really good question. Let's say they are the enemy because you haven't made it clear who it is that I am subscribed to is the problem. Are you saying, based on your logic, that no one can be near the enemy to learn about their enemy, and that you and others like you are the only authoritative source on the enemy? His response. Okay, one, in the words of it's always motherfuckers being inspired by Chinese people. I have no idea. But the ability to speak does not make you intelligent. I will agree with that, because you are not that intelligent to begin with. And two, what enemy? Why are you putting words in my mouth? Seems to me like you are the one here that has a good guys and enemies mindset, which is bullshit, by the way, because here he is, his original comment right here, quite literally saying and meaning, because you follow a sect of people, therefore we cannot, as leftists, under no circumstances, take what you say at face value. Therefore, you're the bad guy, we're the good guys. It's amazing how these people, not too far off from each other, will say that you're doing something when they're the ones who engage with you on that same premise in the first place. And then they'll act like, oh, I'm not saying that. You're just putting words in my mouth. I mean, yeah, you're far right and everything, and you follow far right politics, but I'm using very vague and very broad terminology and not placing you in a very specific camp. It's clear that you're antithetical to Nick Fuentes, but I can't say that, because if I said that, I would have to apologize. Just answer the question, because you're the one who came to me talking about who I'm subscribed to are questionable people. So you can't flip that on me. I'm the one asking you who it is that I follow that has questionable politics I need to be aware of. You can't just make a blanket generalized statement of following someone and then not follow through on it. Also, I am also asking, not making a claim on if you're the authoritative source of who my enemies are. Understand words. Bullboy's response: you're giving me a headache with all your word salads. Meaning he cannot read. He has a really hard time reading paragraphs. So let me oversimplify it for you. You're subscribed to terrible political people and groups. Okay, what are those terrible political people and groups? You're using vague and broad terminology, and you're not being very specific. See, when you don't want to be specific with what you're actually saying, that gives me every justification to believe you're not a really good person. So why would anyone who is against them be subscribed to them? So you can learn from the enemy. So by your logic, if you're against white supremacy, under no circumstances would you read the book Mein Kampf to understand the philosophy of white nationalism? You're telling me you wouldn't understand the philosophy of Carl Schmitt, one of the philosophers of the Nazi German Party, so you can actually understand the mindset of why and how these people justify their positions? Are you saying you wouldn't go to someone like Nick Fuentes, whose whole white nationalist campaign completely depends on no one having a solution for young disenfranchised men in general, who want to be men? But the left has gone on a campaign that says nobody can be straight, nobody can be white, quote unquote, which is also another vague and broad term. And if you fall into any of these categories, you are the enemy. So he's making the claim. So he didn't answer my question. He's making the claim because you read up on white nationalism, you understand it, and you're trying to dismantle it. You are the enemy because you're trying to dismantle white supremacy. You're watching Nick Fuentes. You ultimately understand that the majority of his audience are disenfranchised young men who are trying to be men, and they want the space to be men, and you're trying to come up with a solution that is far better than what Nick Fuentes is doing. Therefore, you are the enemy. He is the literal definition of a useful idiot. Hold on, let me go ahead and finish this comment. And to answer your other sarcastic question, do I really have to be an authoritative source to call people out? No, but you're acting like you are an authoritative source when you can actually go to the people that you're against, right? And you can learn what is it motivates their political agenda. It's more than just hating black people. It's more than just hating minorities. It's more than just hating LGBTQ people. Because it's like I said in my other videos, oftentimes people like you don't know how to deal with half-truths. Like, here's an example of half-truth. Let's take a rainbow for an example. A rainbow has 7 colors. That is a truth. One of the colors is red. That's a truth. Orange. That's a truth. Yellow, green, blue, purple, and indigo. These are all truths, right? Okay, so because all these are truths, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a lie towards the end of all these truths and try to use these leads of truths to cast people towards a lie. So because the rainbow, which consists of 7 colors, which we all agree with, consists of those 7 colors, which we also agree with, which is also a symbol of the covenant with Jesus Christ and his people, which is also a truth. And here's the lie. Because the LGBTQ appropriated the label of the rainbow flag and bastardized it under homosexuality, which is a sin in the Bible, which is also a truth, we have a right to dehumanize them. That's the lie. And then people like you will respond with, what? Everything you said was a lie because you're attacking a group of people because of a label and a symbol, and you're generalizing a whole group of people. So therefore, everything you said was wrong. But did everything I say was wrong, though? No. The rainbows was not false. The colors were not false. The symbol of the rainbow being a covenant from God to his people is not a false either. It's a truth. They're all truths. Yes, the tail end of what I said with the LGBTQ was a lie, mixed in with a sprinkle of truth here and there. But that's not how you tackle half-truths. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how do you deal with a half-truth? Well, this is how you deal with a half-truth. You admit the truths within the argument, right? You don't throw those away, because you throw them away, well, then guess what? The lie becomes a truth, because that lie was tied with a string of truths. So you deal with the truths and you accept the truths, but then you take the lie and you separate the lie from the truths and say, well, we can't dehumanize these groups of people simply because of their sexuality, because they can't control that. Now, so long as they're responsible with their sexuality, I think it's perfectly fine. So long as they're being upstanding citizens of society and they're not breaking any laws and they're not acting in immoral manners, I think it's perfectly fine for them to be homosexuals. Now, is that a sin within the Bible? Yes, it's a sin within the Bible, but that's between them and God to have that conversation when their time comes. But are there examples of people who appropriate the label of LGBTQ and they do extreme things such as have sex with children or give children drugs and hormone therapy when they cannot consent to these things? Yes, those are cases. But I believe those types of cases and those type of people should be separate from those who identify as LGBTQ. As a matter of fact, I would even go as far as to say that those who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, whatever, should separate yourselves from that label so that you are not associated under that flag and grouped as a group of individuals. So Mr. Bullboy here is definitively making the claim that you cannot subscribe to someone with these ideologies, because by subscribing to them, you are in fact agreeing with every single thing that they say. You can't just be watching these people so you can catch what they say that is out of line and you can hold them accountable for that. The Bullboy, being against white supremacy, is staying as far away as possible from any and all sources and not understanding what the hell you're talking about or dealing with. Because why would you say that you're trying to solve the problem, but at the same time you don't even understand what the problem is? How can you tackle the problem of racism when all you do is engage in vague and broad terminology such as those people over there? Am I very generalized when it comes to Marxists? Yes, I am, because I have too many examples of why I've been burned and lied to by Marxists, socialists, socialist Democrats, and communists. but I am very specific about who I am talking about. I've read Karl Marx, and to be honest, I do not agree with most things this man says. He lived a horrible life. He was a self-hating Jew, born in a rich family, and upset that he couldn't live off the life of his own father's wealth. If you was truly a Marxist, you would reject Karl Marx off of the premise of him believing that he belongs within the bourgeois of his rich family. But this is where things get interesting. After that comment, Mr. Bullboy, who is clearly a boy, starts going around all my videos and posts, leaving one-liner comments. Schizo posting everywhere, which is kind of funny because if he actually listened to his boy Q in the comment section, that would mean his comments are actually boosting my videos throughout the algorithm. So I lay it low just for a little while, just so we can actually stop for a minute, so I could actually get all the evidence and put it in this video. Because if I kept responding to it while making this video, he would just keep responding and responding and responding and responding, hoping that I wouldn't get to a certain comment. Therefore, by not responding, he's automatically right. Bullboy responds on one of my posts. Seems more like you have just a blind hatred for Marxism. It's not really blind hatred when you've actually read Das Kapital, but whatever. So much so that you'll believe any negative thing spoken about it. Which is not true because, well, in Mein Kampf, Hitler appreciated Karl Marx. He even said Karl Marx was right. And Hitler literally based his entire philosophy on Nazism by appropriating Karl Marx's philosophy. So I don't know what do you mean anything negative about? Are you saying like Hitler's wrong despite the fact that he agreed with Karl Marx? I don't know. What do you mean? Like, explain. And believe anyone that's against it. I mean, if you're against it, but you're appropriating the same tactics from rules of radicals, I don't agree with those type of people. But if you're against it and you're not using the same tactics from rules of radicals, then that's a person I will listen to because that's a person with principle. And they look at evil and say, I call that evil. It is evil. And because it is evil, I'm not going to replicate it. But there are people like Nick Fuentes, like Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad. And I believe, what was that one guy's name? I know Aristocratic Utensil, Just Pearly Things. Most people within the Red Pill community, they've all subscribed to the idea of nothing in the world matters but power. You can be as contradictory as hell, which is what Karl Marx subscribed to as well. It's what he promoted within his book. You're definitely not in the right state of mind. I've seen countless far-right wingers like you, and all of them demonize a group or ideology just because they don't like it, as they literally pull up the source of Karl Marx and Das Kapital and, Mein Kampf and, Mao Zedong and a lot of these people, like, they pull up the sources. They're not saying they don't like it just because they don't like it. Like, we have reasons. It is an ideology that is a religion that pretends to be an economical practice when it's not an economical practice, it's a religion that believes it must take control of the state in order for it to usher its people into a utopia. Only for it to happen throughout history, time after time after time after time after time. The result is famine, state poverty, state death, state sanctioned destruction under the guise of trying to fix a problem. And I find it very fascinating, I find it very hilarious that you and Q, a person who openly admitted he has no understanding of the Democrat and Republican parties, meaning he has no understanding of its history, who originated with the KKK, was the Democrats, and yet he is trying to solve racism. That is not a person with a solution, that is a problem under the guise of a solution. You might as well be like trying to solve the issue with Gaza and Israel by saying that the proper solution for these two, this end the conflict, is a two-state solution with both Muslims and Jews living together. When you have no understanding of the Quran, the Islamic Qurans, the Hadiths, that quite literally say that you are, a person who is prescribed under the tenets of Islam, required to force people to agree and obey Allah in terms of Islam, and any disagreement is punishable by death. And that Christians and Jews are ahistorically the enemy of Islam. I responded with, how do I have a blind hatred for Marxism when I read up on its biography? For me personally, I don't have a lot of faith in movements in general. Never really subscribed to the All Lives Matter movement, but I understand the message. Yet too many bad actors infiltrate movements, so I avoid them because people don't want to treat their enemies wearing the same coat as them, the same as their enemies without their coats. Second, you are not going to weaponize my morality against me. I don't have to love my enemy, who happens to be my neighbor, who wants me dead for rejecting Islam. I don't have to love an enemy who happens to be my countryman, who wants to ensure I own nothing and is completely dependent on the state. Do I have to love thy neighbor who is into having sex with children? Well, here's the thing. If they haven't done it, if they have not violated the bodily autonomy of a person, and they're looking for medical help, that is a person to help. I agree with that stance. But outside of that, if a person has had sexual intercourse with a child who cannot agree and cannot consent to having sex with an adult because they're not old enough to actually understand these things, that is a person that needs to be locked up. And I'll even throw you a bone here, Mr. Bullboy, because clearly you don't really watch my videos. So there was a content creator by the name of David Wood. He runs a channel. And they were doing a live stream, and I already did a video on this. You can check that out in my video library. Where he admitted back then when he was 18, and he didn't care because, he's going against the whole Dawa dilemma with, Daniel Hakikachu and Muhammad Ajib, a bunch of people that quite literally openly advocate for having sex with children and being able to marry children. They're perfectly fine with that. He was making fun of the Dawa dilemma and how they rationalize their ability to be able to do that kind of stuff. He brought up something that he did back then when he was young, when he was 18. He was off the wall, didn't have God in his life, didn't know what he was doing, hated his father, almost killed his father, did a lot of things like that. And there was a party that he went to with a bunch of other teens, and he ended up having sex with two of them. One was 15, one was 13. Now, I'm pretty sure by what I said earlier, you would say, oh, that person did it, right? So therefore he should be locked up, right? No, because he was 18. He was 18, and what he thought he was having sex with was people who was around his age as well, because everyone else there was 18. So he figured they had to be 18 too. But that wasn't him saying that he did it, knowing it, and didn't care. He was saying he did it, and he knows that it's wrong, and that you shouldn't do that. So he was spreading a message of saying, like, hey, if you're 18, you shouldn't really be doing these kind of things, right? Only for people like Daniel Hakikachu, and I think her name was Riley Joy. I forgot her name. But she was also a quote-unquote Christian journalist. Went on Twitter to condemn David Wood, telling him that he should step down from ministry, which is kind of weird because ministry is not like some type of institutional position. It's not like you get voted into that. There's no such thing like stepping down from something like that. And then he runs the YouTube channel, so it's like, how do you step down from something that you own? So that doesn't make any sense, which is kind of weird, by the way, because Julie ended up citing and quoting in her article the very man who has been known to debate people like IP, David Wood, and Apostate Prophet. And that man is Daniel Hakikachu. She quoted Daniel Hakikachu, the man who has been advocating for having sex with children. One is trying to stop it. One is pointing out it's a bad thing to do and you shouldn't do it. The other one is saying you did it, so therefore you cannot be forgiven and you must turn yourself into prison because you did the thing. But she's openly admitting that she had sexual interest with a minor in her youth group. And that's why I side with David on this one. Because there's so many people on this platform that are trying to promote themselves as squeaky clean individuals with no problems whatsoever. And it's a breath of fresh air of a person willing to sit in a live stream and say, yeah, I did this. It was a bad thing I did. And instead of just sitting there saying, well, you can't do it because it's icky and gross, he has philosophical reasons as to why adults cannot have sex with children. Philosophical reasons and grounding as to why children cannot, under no circumstances, consent to having sex with adults. And what are these people's response? Oh, he needs to go to prison because we said so. Why? Where's the evidence? But he admitted. Okay, I understand he admitted it, but that's not how our law system works. Admission is not a sign of guilt. We have to have the definitive proof. Like, I can sit here and say, I murdered somebody. Are you going to take this video to the cops and be like, he said he murdered somebody, so you have to go to his location, find him, and arrest him? No. Because why? You need definitive proof. You need the murder weapon. You need the MO. You need who the person was. You need the victim. You need evidence to convict the person. These people, like Daniel Hakikachu and that Christian journalist, aren't looking for justice. They're looking for revenge. They're looking for a political cudgel to take out their political opponents, like Marxists do. It's not about justice with these people. It's about eliminating the competition so they can sell their quote-unquote utopia to people that are too dumb to realize that it's actually a lie. Your issue is that you cannot tell the difference between someone like Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes because you isolate yourself from your enemy, yet think you're smart enough to debate your ally who is bold enough to listen to the enemy and distinct the enemy from someone like Charlie Kirk. If they won, doubt you would be saying this. Far right only goes to the winning far right side. If he won, I wouldn't care because I don't like Andrew Tate. Because I don't follow, what's that freaking sports name? UFC. I don't follow UFC. The only time I knew about the UFC because I follow Tree of Logic. Like, that's the only time I actually knew he lost. If he won, I wouldn't know because I don't watch the UFC. That's a retarded argument. You are really stupid. As much as you claim I have blind hatred for Marxists, despite reading up on Karl Marx and hating his lifestyle of being a child born in a rich family and still couldn't make it in life, you like to go around and do the exact same thing. And yet you have no philosophical foundation to argue against me. If I was far right with Nick Fuentes or Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad, I would be accepting the fact that Karl Marx was completely right, despite being a dirty Jew, and would implement his tactics within my politics, which would make me a self-hating of my own race, which is what Q and U are. And then here's another schizo post on one of my posts where he just says F ICE, and I respond with an F you, and the rest of your quote-unquote people for putting black people in the back of the line because we've woken up to your Democrat bullcrap of tokenism. His response, pretty sure your president recently posted something about a racist post, and I'm like, oh, that thing. And I'm like, yeah, and yet you didn't go after the account that made the video. Plus, that wasn't racist. I enjoyed biting eating a banana like the monkey he is. All you got is talking points. Keep talking. It makes for great content. Now, notice after all these comments, right? Not one has he responded to where we're having an educated back and forth. He doesn't engage with what I actually say because all his talking points are just that. They're just talking points. He just says things and expects him saying the thing is supposed to make you freak out because he said the thing. But if you actually read up on the thing, or if you didn't read up on it and you don't care, it doesn't work on you. Because why would you care about something that you didn't read upon? Or even if you read upon it and it's not true, why would you care? Why would you bowl to it? Why would you fold to it? It's because that's his tactic. That's all they do is vague post about someone doing something that you should be against, but you're not against it. Therefore, you're the bad guy. But notice how he doesn't elaborate on what he means. He keeps it nice, vague, and broad. So that way, even when he's wrong, and if there is an example, because again, it's a half-truth. If the half-truth shows its truth, therefore he's right, despite the fact he didn't name anyone specifically. Because this is how I can tell you guys are so fake. And again, like, you as a Marxist should be ashamed of yourself because you're doing a horrible job looking for justice for people who are disenfranchised. Why is it you're so focused on Trump, but at the exact same time, you don't go after the guy who literally made the video? Here's his account name right here. Zurius? I'm going to call it Zurius. And the guy you should be angry at, but you're not. Remember, these are the same people that say we're looking for justice for black people, but they don't go after the people who are responsible for the thing that they're angry at. This is the guy that made the AI video right here. He made another one of Michelle Obama as a freaking gorilla with Joe Biden as an orangutan. And yet, for some reason, all of you are quiet. Oh my God, the mouths are moving. That is so weird. That is so, oh wow, oh God. Is that Obama? That's Obama's Rita. So by your logic, the person who posted it is far more dangerous than the person who made it. This guy. How are you delivering justice to black people, by the way? And if this is his method of carrying out justice for black people, what else do you think he does in terms of economical policies? And I replied to him, also, let's get one thing straight here. That half-breed black you call Obama don't represent us. Recognize that. And he responds, I left you a lot of more comments all over your posts. Think you'll like them. Maybe your niece and nephew will be a little more educated thanks to me. And this is the comment I found very off-putting. Now, considering I was born in the 90s, right? This is the rise of the internet. And generally, when someone expressed some form of interest in someone else's children, especially when you're strangers, these are my nieces and nephew, right? I love them. And here's a guy who quite literally hates me, wants nothing to do with me, but he wants access to my sister's children so he can educate them better than I can. You know, here's the funny thing about Marxists. My sister is a Marxist. Now, do I hate her? No. With family, I'm willing to be very patient. With strangers, not really. Especially when they lie to me in my face all the time and are contradictory all the time. Now, when a person expresses interest in education or whatever, especially when they clearly do not like you, if they express interest in your children, that is a red flag. And every time I have conversations with Marxists, it's almost as if they think they have a right to your children. And yes, they honestly do think they have a right to your children, because the ideology does express its interest in the abolition of consent. So imagine a Marxist have a problem with a person who's not a Marxist, whose sister is a Marxist, is not good enough to raise her own children to the point to where the other Marxist says it ain't good enough and that he needs to take over training the kids. Oh, but he didn't know that. But he didn't know that. Okay, even if you didn't know my sister was a Marxist, what makes you think you have a right to my sister's children because I made the claim that I educate them? You found it very disturbing that I am related to someone who has children and I am giving them my input on how I see things. And you found that very distressing to the point you need to seize control over something that you have no control over. So I'm really looking at this man in the lens of more than just a stranger. Like that's a very off-putting comment. You never say some goofy stuff like that online. Never. And you're on here talking about Trump and the Epstein files. So I respond with, how about we have a conversation like adults instead of you talking like you know what you're talking about? You literally follow a guy who has no understanding of the Democrats and Republicans and claims he wants to stop racism by being racist himself. And then I quote him and I say, the fact that you, a stranger, think you can educate my family without my permission justifies my reticle on your face. And unlike you, I'll actually stand by what I actually said. Yes, I did say that. Because you are a threat to me. You are a threat to my nieces and nephew. And because I perceive you as a threat. Because no grown man, and I hope you're a grown ass man, because if you're talking like this as a child, you really are. Either way, it doesn't really matter. You shouldn't be talking like this online, acting like you can educate other people's children. You shouldn't be talking like that. I perceive that as a threat. And because I perceive that as a threat, that what I said to you was not a threat. That was self-defense. I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. I don't want you near me. And you represent an ideology that is constantly stabbing us in the back time after time after time again. You are a threat. And then he responds with, yeah, the party of all lives matter, the party of pro-life, is issuing threats. Okay, first of all, what do you think pro-life is? And what do you think all life? I don't even subscribe to that freaking movement to begin with. But it's almost like he's doing the whole being super hyperbolic with what the meaning says. So because the meaning says all lives matter, that means pedophiles matter, murderers matter, Epstein matters. All horrible people that you can possibly think of, even Nazis, matter. But that's not the movement. Pro-life is not like that either. Just because someone is pro-life does not mean they are pro-Nazi. So basically, by your logic, you're saying because you're Christian and you're pro-life, even if you perceive a threat, you're not supposed to, under no circumstances, draw arms to defend yourself. You're supposed to just let them walk all over you because you're a Christian. You know what you sound like to me, bully dog? Well, actually, no, it's a bully boy, but I'm going to call you a dog at this point. You know what you sound like to me? You sound like the people from the Society of Conversion of Negro Slaves that created the Slave Bible back in 1807. And you think just because I'm Christian and I support pro-life, therefore my approach to the situation of perceiving threats should be in the same manner of African slaves and their masters. The master is the threat, but I can't perceive him as a threat, so therefore I just supposed to take it. And then here's another schizo post. Donald Trump is on the Epstein list. Let's see those excuses. And I respond with, I won't repeat myself because clearly you have no intention on having a discussion, just plastering comments on everything thinking this will drive people to voting Democrat. For someone with a headache, you sure are active. FYI to anyone reading this guy's comments, he does not debate on anything. He just shit posts and runs away. And I quote from another post, and Whoopi's name appears in it as well, and yet you're silent on her. Names in the files does not mean they were complicit with sex trafficking of minors. Plus, the reason his name appears in the files, quote unquote, millions of times is because the files are just a collaboration of news clippings and articles of people complaining about Trump. Give me the file name, page, and paragraph that shows Trump was complicit with the sex trafficking of minors. If you take something out of context, you should lose a finger for lying. Because, let's be honest, we live in a society where people like this can say whatever the hell they want and it can face no consequences whatsoever. And again, if this is how you seek justice for minorities and women and vulnerable people, you are a horrible person. And no one should listen to you or Q, because as a collective, you are representative of Q. You're not individuals. You are a collective. So I find it funny every time I criticize you Marxists, you're all of a sudden an individual, but then when it comes to promoting your ideology, you're all a collective and you cannot break away from one another. And again, if this is how you seek justice for minorities and women and vulnerable people, you are a horrible person. And no one should listen to you or Q, because as a collective, you are representative of Q. You're not individuals. You are a collective. So I find it funny every time I criticize you Marxists, you're all of a sudden an individual, but then when it comes to promoting your ideology, you're all a collective and you cannot break away from one another. Since you guys want justice for the minors and women who were sexually assaulted on Epstein's Island, why is it I don't hear you saying anything about Sarah Palin or Leslie Groff or Adriana Ross or Nadia? I am not going to pronounce that last name, so don't even try to make me do that. And Jean-Luc Brunel and Lex Wexner. None of you guys say anything about these people. But you're all just you don't care about justice. You're using the Epstein files as a means to slander somebody so you can justify doing anything you want to them. You guys are horrible people. It even says right here, high-profile figures like Bill Clinton, who I hate, by the way, Donald Trump, Prince Andrews, Alan Dershowitz, and others appear frequently in the files, with some facing separate abuse allegations. However, none have been charged with trafficking in connection with Epstein, and the files often emphasize they were not complicit in the core scheme. So again, how is it justice when you're going after one guy, but you're not going after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other 4 co-conspirators, because it says 10. Excuse me. It says that there's 10 co-conspirators in terms of the sex trafficking of minors. Why haven't you named them? Why is it only Trump? Is it the fact that you're looking for justice, or is it the fact that you're just using justice as a weapon to go after people you politically disagree with? Because despite the fact I politically disagree with Bill Clinton, despite the fact that I politically disagree with Hillary, I consider them evil as hell. They are ahistorically my enemy. But I'm principled enough not to include their name in this. Were their name in it? Yes, their name was in it. But as a principled individual, not a tribalized collective that tries to find any little thing and twist it in order for them to get what they want. I maintain my principle, and despite the fact that I hate these two, my main concern is, what proof is there that makes Bill Clinton complicit with what I think he did? And if you think I'm just being hyperbolic, saying like this guy is like retarded, like, no, I'm not being hyperbolic when I say he's retarded. Like, he is factually retarded. He's making an assumption, and here's a comment where he says on one of my posts, I think this was the post where I was saying, what kind of videos do you guys want me to cover about? And he says, cover black people that side with racists. And I said, I already did. You should watch my our video, The Qualifications of a Genuine House Negro. You'll like the first two, but I'm sure you'll have an issue with the last one because he's a leftist. It's like, if you go on my channel, right, I have several videos of black people that I disagree with that ultimately side with racists, like Andrew Williams. Despite the fact that I do agree with his message on, cleaning up the black community, his live streams is literally him shitting on Israel, which is a pretty good indicator that this man not realizing that under Hitler's racial hierarchy chart, black people are in the same category as Jews, racially inferior. So that tells me not to listen to him. And I have this video right here where I'm literally criticizing a conservative on a disagreement on something. And then there's this video right here, which I have been promoting, that on the first two of them is criticizing Candace Owens and Myron Gaines. And the last one is I Show Speed. A lot of people don't want to talk about that one. Like, there's videos on here of me talking about these people. Talking about them, disagreeing with them. And yet, for some reason, you don't see it. Why? Because YouTube has programmed you into thinking if you don't see the recent video, therefore, he doesn't believe in it. You're not white. Stop acting like Uncle Ruckus. My response, projection. You clearly hang out with Q, just Ruckus, because he thinks all black people are the same. I love triggering Marxists. Keep talking. The more you do, the more proof I have to show my nieces and nephew to stay away from people like you. And like, keep in mind, like, he's jumping from post to post, to video, like posting this, posting that, posting this, posting that. And we'll get to the last one, which is a real juicy one. And I guess he thought I wasn't going to see it. But he says, well, right now you're embracing far-right views, so it looks like they will end up like you, unfortunately. And I'm like, how am I embracing far-right views when I'm against Nick Fuentes? What philosopher do I subscribe to in terms of quote-unquote far-right, because he's using it as an umbrella term where he doesn't have to explain himself? Views. You're using vague language like extremists always use. Like, notice how when it comes to making accusations against me or Trump or his political enemies, he doesn't go into detail, nor does he rebuttal against what I said, because it's impossible for him. He doesn't have the intelligence to actually hold that type of conversation. It's just talking point, talking point, talking point. Okay, that didn't work. Here's another talking point. Oh, that didn't work. Trump did this, so therefore you need to be doing this. They did this, and what about this? And talking point, talking point, talking point. But then when you have evidence against his talking point, he shuts the hell up. Now, here's the juicy comment right here, and I find it hilarious. How about we have a debate as to whether or not it's okay to issue out threats based on your own moral compass? I'll wait. And that's not how you spell compass, by the way. It's COMPASS, but, whatever. And I replied with, like, yeah, we can do that. When do you want to set that up? I'm only available on weekends. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are off limits because I do dialysis on those days. Also, nice strategy thinking that by bombarding my videos and posts with comments that I wouldn't see this. I find it fascinating and in character as you being a Marxist can only enter a debate on being perceived as a victim as opposed to the talking points that you dump and leave behind. Also, it'd be nice if you would just stay on one post as opposed to just jumping around all over the place, hoping that I don't respond means you're right. It just means you're a coward. And I've already told you why I perceive you as a threat. You think you have a right to my sister's children's education, despite hating me so much. When you subscribe to a self-hating Jew who hates his own people and only values himself, you're either hating your own race or you hate the race of those you find inferior, which Marx clearly finds us as inferior. This quote-unquote debate isn't going to be over my quote-unquote threat to you, because clearly we live in two entirely different realities, where to me, strangers on the internet demanding access to my children's is a threat. But to you, it isn't. Instead, it's going to be centered on the Epstein files. Here are the conditions. 1, you will show yourself on screen where I can see you. 2, the topic will be on why do you think all black people are the same as well. 3, I've already explained to you why your demand for my sister's children is a threat. There is no debate there. The fact you're comfortable with the idea that a stranger who hates someone and demands access to their enemy's children is quite telling of who you are as a person. 4, I'm only giving this 30 minutes. Do you agree to these terms? And then for some reason, YouTube acts kind of weird because for some reason it like copied and pasted like the same thing in the hidden replies, which is kind of weird. I have to like really dig for this because it was hiding my response. I don't know what the hell is wrong with YouTube, but it says right here at the very bottom, clearly you don't debate either, not once in fact. Now here's my opinion on debates. I'm only going to debate someone who's open to the idea that they are factually wrong. I am not going to sit here and have a conversation with someone who clearly cannot admit when they're wrong. The only thing they can do is dump talking points and cannot refute or back them up. Or 3, oh God, I can't do that with my left hand, hold on. Or 3, freaking surgery, man, that thing is a, hold on, so yeah, that surgery, man, that messed up my hand. But on the third one, I can't do this with my left hand, by the way. Despite the fact claiming you want justice for black people, you only go after one person, Trump, but you don't go after the person that manufactured the AI video in the first place. And despite the fact that you claim that you want justice for the children and the women that were sexually assaulted on Epstein's Island and trafficked through sex trafficking, the only person you have on mind is Trump and nobody else. You display a consistent pattern of obfuscating criminals. Because, you know, the whole point of a debate is that you're open to the idea that you're wrong and that the evidence actually shows that you are wrong. But even after all of this, even after what I've shown you, and you still hold on to these beliefs, why would I have a debate with you? It's just going to be a shouting match of you're wrong because you're a capitalist and you're wrong because you're a Marxist. But I can actually back up why I say you were wrong because you're a Marxist. So here's an idea. In the comment section, if you made it this far, by the way, in the comment section, sell me on the idea of Marxism. Despite the fact of your contradictions that you have displayed in this video time after time after time again, of showing you have no interest in being factually correct. You have interest in being optically correct. And so far, the only person in this entire conversation that has shown any consistent morals or principles is me. Despite the fact that I hate Bill Clinton, I don't drag his name in the mud despite the fact that I hate him. Do I consider him a Marxist? Yeah, I consider him one of y'all. But at the same time, it's like, I can't drag his name through the mud just because I hate him. Because honestly, there is no agreement between me and you. That is the whole point of a debate. To actually get to some form of clarity that you and I can actually agree on. But considering that I'm water and you're oil, and that you think you can be consumed simply because you've captured water, and I don't want oil in my water, what is the point of having this debate? Having a debate with you would be as pointless as Pierce Morgan having a debate with Nick Fuentes going, you're racist and you're racist and you said racist things. It's like, what were you thinking, Pierce? Thinking that that was going to work on a person like Nick Fuentes. His whole PR is marketing to his people that, yes, it's okay for them to be racist, while at the exact same time trying to promote to the public that they're not racist. You cannot have a debate with a person like that, and I cannot have a debate with a person like you. You've already shown me what type of person you are. You'll drop talking points, and if that doesn't work, you'll drop to the next one. If that doesn't work, you'll drop to the next one. And you've clearly shown you cannot have a conversation on things you say. You just drop stuff, and then when the person doesn't reciprocate the way you want them to reciprocate, you move on to the next talking point. So no, I don't have to entertain a debate. Like, I was entertaining the debate because I was thinking, okay, maybe he's not that bad. Then after I sat down and read all your comments, I'm like, no, you are a disgusting human being. I have no idea why my mic is doing that. All of a sudden, the audio quality just kind of shifted. So, sorry about that, people. But to be honest, it's not really going to be a debate. Let's say, for instance, I do this, right? It's not going to be a debate. I'm just going to point out all the hypocritical crap that comes flying out of your mouth if this actually ends up being a thing. Because I'm not in the business of changing your mind, because clearly I can't. I'm going to admit that. I'm in the business of getting to normal people you haven't gotten to. Those are the people I need to reach out to. Those are the people I need to save from you. And if I have to reach out to children, I'm going to do that with the parents' permission. Not with my own permission, not with my own moral obligation of trying to save the country and thinking because I'm saving the country, I have the moral obligation to corrupt other people's children. Because I would want the parents to understand what I am teaching their children as well. But you, not so much. Because it's obvious what you do to people like me. I'm in the business of coming up with a solution. That way, Nick Fuentes and white supremacy doesn't become a solution. And that requires stopping people like you, bully boy. Because let's be honest, and I find it very fascinating too. He went to a lot of my videos, right? But funny enough, he didn't go to any of my videos where I was criticizing Nick Fuentes. Went to every other video that can be portrayed as shitting on Marxism. But when it comes to shitting on Nick Fuentes, he'll completely disregard it. Again, black people, this is the ideology you're subscribing to. You're subscribing to an ideology where these people will quite literally defend criminals. They will defend racists. They will defend the degenerate. So long as it allows them to be able to push themselves into their communist utopia, they do not care. And as long as you uphold that ideology, and as long as you uphold those negative attributes within the black community, you're giving Nick Fuentes even more power. Because when my position doesn't work, fascism becomes more appealing to those who have lost their tolerance.
Scorched earth on black culture.
White people are every single bit justified in being racist. And you want to know why? Because we see what happens. And nobody is under any obligation due to liberal ideology to put themselves in harm's way. I really hope that somewhere out there, although I'm not optimistic, black people are starting to develop some sense of self-awareness. Where's the shame? Aren't you people ashamed? When I see these clips of graduation ceremonies where they're twerking on stage and dancing, the black cheerleaders on the basketball court brawling it out, Carmelo Anthony, they raise $500,000 for him and then they get a public defender. When I see that video of a black security guard rifling through the pockets of an unconscious white guy that got his ass kicked, you have to ask the black people that are normally so proud, are you not ashamed when you see these things? Are there any black people that see this and have the slightest lick of self-awareness? Where's the accountability?
Okay, so where do I begin with this? First of all, let me just say, Nick Fuentes is right in most of the things that he's saying. First of all, there does need to be a contingent of black folks, a significant contingent that isn't just black conservatives or whatever the case may be, but just people who have dark colored skin who are speaking up and saying, this doesn't represent me. I'm not represented when people like Raha Jackson or whatever his name is picks up a guy, slams him, concusses him, and then proceeds to punch him in the face 20 times. That's not representative of me as a so-called black person. There needs to be a large contingent of black folks who speak up and say things like that, especially when you have a contingent of black folks who are saying that this is representative of quote unquote our culture, that this is our get back and we don't like being played with and all this other nonsense. To the extent that that crowd rises up, there needs to be a counter narrative that comes up saying, look, if that's what blackness is, I don't want any parts of it. So I think Nick is right. There needs to be accountability. There needs to be responsibility. But in the real world, it does serve the function of discrediting these good ideas because of who is saying it and the tone in which they're saying it. But I, for one, am not somebody who buys into this idea that many people try to push, that by agreeing with certain things Nick Fuentes says, then that I'm casting my lot with white supremacy, that I'm giving a nod to white supremacy. You see this happen all the time where so-called conservatives, because they want to prove that, look, I'm not like Nick Fuentes. I do buy into these progressive ideas. I do believe X, Y, and Z. They overcorrect, and that is how the PSYOP is done. Please understand this. And that leads me to my last point, which is, Nick Fuentes has criticized Jason Whitlock as being a token. And he really leans into that. He believes that this is the thing that's going to sink Jason Whitlock's ship, as it were, by calling him a token. He's trying to tap dance and appeal to white people. He only got his job because he's a black man saying things that white people want to hear. Again, this is another PSYOP. I understand that as a black man, for me to call out cultural degeneracy in so-called black America, I'm more effective than a white person would be in this same position. I understand that. That's not lost on me. But it seems to me that Nick Fuentes, in order for him to not see you as a token or a sellout, you have to agree with him on every front, including this idea that as a black man, I have a lower IQ than white people, just for no other reason than I have black skin. I have to agree with him on that. And to the extent that I don't agree, I'm a token. I just tell white people the things they want to hear. So for Nick Fuentes, it seems that he's for Nick Fuentes. He's not for the kingdom of God. He's not for the word of God. He's for Nick Fuentes. And to the extent that somebody dares disagree with him, be prepared to feel the wrath of Nick Fuentes. I understand that as a black man, for me to call out cultural degeneracy in so-called black America, I'm more effective than a white person would be in this same position. I understand that. That's not lost on me. But it seems to me that Nick Fuentes, in order for him to not see you as a token or a sellout, you have to agree with him on every front, including this idea that as a black man, I have a lower IQ than white people, just for no other reason than I have black skin. I have to agree with him on that. And to the extent that I don't agree, I'm a token. I just tell white people the things they want to hear. So for Nick Fuentes, it seems that he's for Nick Fuentes. He's not for the kingdom of God. He's not for the word of God. He's for Nick Fuentes. And to the extent that somebody dares disagree with him, be prepared to feel the wrath of Nick Fuentes.
And I stand with Mr. Chad O. Jackson. His channel will be in my description of this video. So, like that man said, your actions and what you promote and what you defend is what fuels that man's agenda. So I cannot side with you, because by siding with you, I am siding with white supremacy. Because Marxists have been fueling white nationalism this entire time. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this one goofy little comment right here. Why I said the right to your children, never said that, and you don't even have children of your own. And I find that very fascinating that he thinks he can shame a Christian for not having children, which is kind of weird. So like, wait, so I guess by your logic, right? If a rapist has a child, they're winning? If a person who cannot take care of a child has a child, they're a winner? What if the person cannot physically have a child? What if the person mentally cannot take care of a child? What if they don't want a child? What if a person doesn't like the back and forth and hypocrisy of women living in a entirely different reality than reality itself, that lives in the same reality that you live in? What if I don't want to be a part of that? And it's perfectly fine for me not to be a part of that. It's perfectly fine. Like, here's a lesson for you guys out there who are young. It's perfectly fine for you to be alone. Don't let these people pressure you into something you are not mentally ready to be a part of, or you don't want to be a part of. And that's why we're running into this issue. It's clowns like this who want to push people into positions that they don't want to be a part of. Oh, but I'm helping you. How are you helping me? I don't want a wife. I don't want to be tied to a wife that's a Marxist. And it's hard for me to find a wife that's not a Marxist. It's really hard for me to find that. It's a rare breed. So I hit him with the scripture, for I wish that all men were even as I myself, but each one has his own gift from God, one in this manner and another in that. But I say to the unmarried and to the widows, it is good for them if they remain even as I am. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 7 and 8. Because what are your words to me when God has already told me exactly what I'm supposed to do with my life? They're nothing. But see, that's the problem. You can't handle the fact that your words have no power over me. And that's something you need to deal with. Well, that's up with this video, guys. Leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know how I did. And let me know how you did. Until next time, take care and be safe. God bless.